The FedProfits Association presents Thrive in the Recession through the power of no-bid contracts. And now, here's your host, Mr. Supercharged Profits himself, Ron Imbach.
Hello again. This is Ron Imbach, Mr. Supercharged Profits, with another episode of How to Thrive in the Recession through the power of no-bid contracts. I'm really excited about our program this week because I have with me Paul Barboza. Paul is the president of Waterborne Environmental. And Paul and I have known each other maybe 3 years now, something like that. And I know he loves federal contracting, has had a lot of success with it. And we're fortunate enough to call him a client. He's been a client now for a little while. So I wanted to talk to Paul a little bit about his experience in federal contracting. I also wanted to talk to Paul a little bit about, what quite frankly appealed to it about our program and specifically the relationship building part of our program. So first of all, Paul, welcome to the program. How are you?
I'm good, Ron. Thanks for having me on today. How are you?
I am doing fine. Paul, just let me ask you a couple of quick questions. I thought it'd be great for our audience, for our show today, to just, from someone who's got a little bit of experience with federal contracting, but then kind of saw, Eureka, this whole no bid process or building relationships can get me out of just, the 100-page, 120-page bid kind of problem that a lot of businesses have with federal and quite frankly, that's the fear that most people have. They think, I submit all these. I talked to a guy last week and he was an expert on federal contracting. He had worked for a federal agency and he had submitted 75 bids in the last year and a half and had 2 accepted.
Wow.
Now, for someone that had actually been in the process, he had been a contracting officer, a procurement officer. That's not great odds, right?
No, that's terrible. Typically, we try to, at this point, we try to target 33% win rate of things that we submit. And that's typical across the federal industry. As you know, Ron, I ran business development for some large corporations before taking this role here at Waterborne. And that's what we targeted. 25 to 35% was our win rates on submitted bids. And you only chose bids that you thought you had a win rate in that area. And other stuff went to a different kind of no bid, and that was just a walk away if you didn't think you wouldn't make the investment because you didn't think you could win.
Okay. Now let me ask you, during that process, when you prior to us meeting and you coming on board with FedProfits, was the relationship building part of it? Was that a very important part of that process, or was it just find an opportunity, a contract that really fit with, a niche skills, expertise that you guys had? And that's how you were getting those, that, would you say 25 to 35% with other contracts? And then you said right now around 33%. Is that primarily how you were getting those, just really making sure you focused and targeted the right contracts and opportunities?
The part of that, Ron, was getting to know the people that were inside, because if again, in those former roles, if you didn't understand the actual desires and the actual mission of the client, it was very, very difficult to tailor your response to truly meet the needs of that client. Just as we have done with you at FedProfits, if you don't have that relationship built, it is very, very difficult to win by just blindly submitting RFPs, because you're truly shotgunning your response, assuming that they're going to be interested in what you have to say. But if you don't know the underlying problems that these clients have versus what they're publishing in an RFP, it makes it very, very difficult to focus your response to their actual needs.
So what I hear you saying that sounds, it's wonderful for our audience about federal contracting in general, is that you really want to know the agency. You want to know what their needs are, what their mission is, what their objectives, their goals are for the current year, so that you can tailor whatever you're doing. And this can be tailoring a bid that you're submitting, or it could be even targeting the procurement officers, the contracting officers that you want to talk with and build a relationship. Be knowledgeable when you're talking to them, right? Does that seem to make sense?
Absolutely. So and even as we've worked with you, Ron, you need to understand the mission of the agency before you start talking to these contracting officers to be able to have an intelligent discussion when you speak with them, to start that basic process. And that's what we were doing as we've worked alongside FedProfits. That was working with targeted agencies that we understood the basic mission of those agencies and what their goals and aspirations were to push things forward.
Good. Yeah, I mean, it's been I remember I was probably the first one with our organization to reach out to you,
Yes,
like
you were.
2.5, 3 years ago, something like that. And I always enjoyed our conversations, and I know you've got a very talented person on your team, Jeff, who I've also worked with quite a bit, and you both have a lot of experience. Let me ask you, just in the last year and a half, I know you just got a contract not too long ago, 6-figure, a pretty good sized contract. Can you tell us a little bit about the opportunities that you've had success with recently?
Well, we have targeted, Waterborne is a environmental professional consulting firm. We do a lot of research and development. Our traditional market is with the pesticide and agricultural manufacturers. And we're trying to bring that research into the federal government space. And we've been targeting USDA primarily. We have won some other contracts, but with USDA, we've been pursuing grants, and we were awarded about 4 grants at the end of the last fiscal year to do research that it's cutting edge research that, for example, the manufacturers are doing the research, but that's not independent. So what the farmers and the agricultural community is looking for is independent research that can be validated independently. So those are the contracts that we've gone after and been fortunate enough to win. So
good. And you've had some nice success. Has it been? I know you mentioned some at the end of the fiscal year, so prior to 9/30, and then you've gotten 1 or 2 in this current fiscal year, correct?
Yes, we were awarded an Army contract in the remediation space. What we're doing for this client is reporting. They do their own sampling and their own lab testing, and they're feeding us the results, and we're taking that and generating the reports for them. They need an independent party to generate the reports so that they are proven, as well as an independent party that does the lab results, because they then go to in this case, the state Department of Environmental Quality for review to make sure that they are meeting the Army base, which is on state land, obviously, is meeting the requirements of the state.
Wow. It reminds me, as you mentioned that, because you mentioned USDA is a target agency of yours. We've been doing the procurement conferences, which I think I've mentioned before, maybe in a previous show. I'm not sure if I have or not, but I think I have. We do private procurement conferences at FedProfits, where we bring in our clients, just like Paul and many, many others. And what we do, we introduce them to people from an agency, because especially small business specialists, we've had great success bringing them in because they now have more authority than they've ever had in the past. And we'll bring in clients just like Paul for a private event where they get to meet small business specialists. Recently, we brought some buyers in. We've even brought in some primes that our clients can partner with. All right, and they can be a sub in a relation. Great way to break into federal contracting. So thank you for that. And fortunately, now I think you had a relationship with USDA even before we started working together, but you've expanded that. Isn't that correct?
Absolutely. And one of the introductions, Ron, that you made was, I'm going to hold her last name to protect the innocent, and that is Cheryl out of the Kansas City office with USDA, and she's with NRCS, which is the targeted agency that we were after. So the introduction to Cheryl helped us to expand our network across the Department of Agriculture and get to some of the right people as we were going forward. Now, her expertise is not in as much in the grant area as it is in the specific contracts area, but she was able to introduce us to a couple of the contracting officers that have since reached out to us to try to see if we could do work with them.
And quite frankly, Paul, what you just mentioned is the beauty of working with a small business specialist and the beauty of these private procurement conferences we've had, because the introduction is so important. Okay, even if they give you a recommendation, a small business specialist does to a buyer, to any contract, that's wonderful. Okay, because most of the time they're going to use you if they get a strong recommendation. But even if they're just making an introduction, how much time does that save? Like someone like you trying to break into or expand, the contacts you have within an agency, and how much does it help you to have someone say, "Oh, talk to Linda, talk to Paul, talk to Sam," whatever, instead of you trying to figure out just, okay, well, who do I talk to? You can do a little bit of that by obviously looking at contracts that are out there, but it makes it so much easier if you've got someone, because you can always say, as you said, let's keep the last name private to protect the innocent. Okay, as I think they used to say in Dragnet or something like that. But if Cheryl gives you that, oh, here's an interest, even if she's not recommending you, you're still going to one of these new buyers and going, Linda said or Cheryl said I should call you. All right, that's instant credibility. You're not just calling out of nowhere. So they've got some kind of frame of reference. So that's really, really, really important. So, well, tell me again, are there other agencies you're looking at, Paul, besides USDA? I know that's the one you're focusing on. It makes sense given what you guys do. But are there some others as well that you're looking at and thinking about?
Yes, our nearest neighbors for us are Health and Human Services. We were fortunate enough to win a contract with CDC, and that contract is actually wrapping up. We've actually completely executed. It was a very specific project for some scientific research that they wanted completed, and we are in the process of getting ready to publish the final scientific report for them. And we're literally closing that contract out as we speak. The final invoice should be going out before the end of this week, and we've come to the end of that project. So we've actually completed the project. We completed it on time and on budget. It was a fixed price effort, and the client was very, very happy. We received several emails from the clients that we now need to ask if we can use some of the words that are in there in our proposals as we go forward. But we've got a half dozen emails from that client about working with us that we want to take the snippets of those quotes to be able to use in call-out boxes in our proposal responses in the future. But step one is to ask for permission before you just drop them in. So yes, in addition, we're trying to pursue some work with the EPA, as well as other base work along the Army, Air Force, and Navy lines. And then finally, the Army Corps of Engineers is certainly a large buyer of the kind of work that we're looking to build into. They tend to also be, so the Army base that we're working with out in the middle of America, the Army Corps is also a consultant to the base in these areas of expertise that they want accomplished. So we're working alongside the Army Corps of Engineers as well.
Cool. Very cool. Well, I think it goes to show, you mentioned several agencies. You mentioned CDC, you mentioned Army, Navy, folks that have a lot of budget. You also mentioned EPA. You also mentioned HHS. You mentioned some big agencies, but I think what you've seen, and you and I have talked about this quite a bit, is that you can't. It's kind of like when you're going after big clients. And these are big clients. Obviously, for I don't know how many other the size of your average client other than this, but would you say your federal clients are your biggest clients that you have?
As far as the size of the agency, absolutely.
Well,
yes.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. Okay.
Yes.
Your contracts may be as bigger with some commercial clients, but actually, that's accurate as well?
Very true.
Okay. So, but the great thing about this is, and I think that's kind of what I was getting at with my last point, and then I went off and asked you another question, but I think it's really interesting to see that you can't go out and try to shotgun approach and target. There are 4,600 agencies with the federal government. You can't work with them all. Even you can't, Paul. You guys offer a great service. And it might sound kind of cool to work with that many of them, right? You'd make so much money, you wouldn't know what to do with it. But the point is, you can't work with that many. So you've been really good at targeting. What would you say, 4, 5, 6, 8 agencies primarily that could benefit from your services?
Absolutely. I mean, we've targeted it down to, our focus is the ones I mentioned: USDA, EPA, HHS, Army Corps is certainly remains a target, and then the individual bases. But across that population of agencies, you're still talking about millions of potential end users. We talked about Cheryl, and the value that Cheryl brought to us is she helped us get in front of a contracting officer who was in front of a procurement. Now, albeit, unfortunately, it did not work out that we had the services that they were looking for. But if I had to find that contracting officer out of 100,000, I believe that USDA employs over 100,000 people, and you were going through Rolodexes and phone lists, you'd never find the right person. It would be blind luck that if you tripped across somebody that you were looking for in an agency of that size that might be looking to buy your services. So Cheryl was huge in helping us get to an opportunity that we qualified, but we no bid because we didn't want to let this person down at the USDA and not come in with our best foot forward and do something that's outside of our expertise and potentially be using a subcontractor. It's not a way to start a relationship.
And Paul, frankly, what you just mentioned there has been this whole strategy of ours for our clients about these private procurement conferences and making direct introductions has been huge. I mean, it's worked for you. It's worked for so many clients. And we're up to the point now that we're having those about every month with different agencies. We'll probably have a total of, 8, 10, 12 different agencies, but just about every one you mentioned, Army, Navy, we've had procurement conferences with those guys. Obviously, USDA, they're one of our greatest partners in that. We've probably had 6 procurement conferences just with USDA. We've talked to EPA. We'd like to get into EPA with and have one there as well. So, but they have just been a huge, huge bonus and a great strategy. And it all came from changing of the rules a few years ago. We've only been doing these for about 2.5 years, maybe. And that's the reason. The rules changed, gave much more authority to the small business specialists. So anyway, any other, about the relationship building part of our program and just relationship building overall, Paul, is there any bits of advice you'd like to kind of wrap up with by giving to our audience things that would help them, whether they've maybe done a contract or two, but they're like, well, where am I going to get my next one? Mm-hmm. Or whether they're thinking about federal contracting and thinking, would this be a great revenue stream for me to have to get my business off the ground, take it to another level, that kind of thing. Any words of wisdom for them, Paul? You
got to make the investment. The follow-up, we email Cheryl every other week, along with some of the other small business officers that we've met through you and individual shows. You've got to do the follow-up. It's just set it on your calendar, process it forward, and get it done. And you'd be amazed. We sent one to Cheryl. Follow-up last Wednesday was follow-up day, and Cheryl responded a day later with, here's a couple of opportunities for you to consider. And
wow.
We go through that list that Cheryl sent us, and we review them. You mentioned Jeff and I go through and review them, and we get back to Cheryl. Thank you very much. These don't fit. These fit, and we're gonna pursue. But we're actually in conversation with her to let her know that her efforts in response are generating actions such that she continues to respond. So we're trying to make it a positive relationship with her, for her to see activity based on what she's sending to us.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I think it just goes to show the whole, I mean, broadly, if you ask me to describe the FedProfits program, it would be build relationships with different kinds of people, whether it's primes, whether it's contracting officers that you're building relationships with. We have a lot of different ways we can do that. We have ways, obviously, the procurement conferences and many other strategies to help our clients. But you're Paul. Thank you for doing this. You are a joy to work with as a client. I really enjoy it, and we're so excited that you're having the success you're having. And I know you're going to have a whole lot more of it.
Oh, you're very kind, Ron. You guys have been great to work with. Your entire team has just been, from ship on down, a joy to work with. They hit the follow up, and if you don't do what they ask, you're going to hear from them, which is quite frankly, it's a positive, because unfortunately business gets busy, and the activities all need to be taken care of. So we look forward to working with you as we continue to go forward, and years of our long-term relationship with your company.
Thank you so much, Paul. I really appreciate that. And I want to thank everyone for joining us again on the Thrive in the Recession Through the Power of No Bid Contracts show. We're really excited to have you here. Every week, we're going to be either featuring a client, an expert, something else. We're going to give you more and more information about federal contracts. A lot of it's going to focus on the no bid contracts. However, we're going to talk about it from a lot of different aspects, okay? Because there are a lot of contracts that you have to bid on, like Paul mentioned. All right. So we're going to have a lot of different things that we're going to talk to you about. But look at it like this: the federal government is the biggest potential client anyone in the world can work with. All right. They have a budget that exceeds, and you're going to hear me say this, if not every show that we come on and do, most of them, they have a budget for procurement contracts with companies just like yours that exceeds $600 billion annually. That is a lot of money there, and they buy just about everything. So if you have any questions about, maybe this could work for me, wonder if they buy what I sell, that kind of thing, you're going to see our QR code pop up on your screen. Click on that. Come and see us. We offer a class that's a 2-hour class. Basically is to give you the information you need to make an informed and intelligent decision on whether or not federal contracting is a good fit for you. I can tell you this much: they buy just about everything. My saying is, it would take me 30 seconds to tell you what they don't buy, and it would take me probably 30 hours of talking nonstop to tell you what they do buy. So they buy just about everything. They spend a lot of money, and like the name of our show is Thrive in the Recession, they spend more in a recession than they do any other time of the year. All right, spend a lot of money all the time, but they especially do it during a recession. So once again, I want to thank you. Please join us again. We're going to have another great guest like Paul and many others we've had to just kind of, again, give you more and valuable information and help you decide whether federal contracting is a great way for you to go. I'm Ron Imbach. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us on the Thrive in the Recession Through the Power of No Bid Contract show. If you want more information on no bid contracts, visit us at www.fedprofits.com. We hope that you will join Ron Imbach, Mr. Supercharged Profits, next time as we continue to explore how no-bid federal contracts can seriously grow your business. Be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts, or visit the FedProfits YouTube channel. Until next time, have a prosperous week.